Good morning, everyone. We are currently headed for breakfast. The ship isn't supposed to dock for another 3 hours. Like I said in my previous vlog, we're now in Halifax from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. instead of 7 to 4 because of the technical failure with the engines. So that has changed our plans a little bit. We are going to go to the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic first, and then we are going to go to the Citadel, and then if we have time, then we can go to the public gardens. So it's just after 10 and we are about 1.5 kilometers away from Halifax, and at 10:15 they're giving out another diamond art painting, so I'm headed there to get one of those, and then I'm gonna go back to the room and hopefully try to watch us come into Halifax. It's really foggy right now, so there's not really a lot you can see. First view of Halifax. They also have my waterfall. That is so beautiful. So it is 11:15. We just got off the ship in Halifax and we are walking off the dock. The gangway was on deck 7 and we are headed to the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. Took us about 20 minutes to walk here from the fort. So there's two pictures, one from 1857 and one from 2009, and they show how things have changed. Such a really big comparison if you really look at it.
Where the blast happened, and there was a train coming in as they were speaking, as he was telegraphing them to stop. He was coming in, and so he stopped and saved everybody on that train. So later in the day, immediate relief came right away, and later in the day, other trains were coming in from Nova Scotia, different parts of New Brunswick, and they had to stop them down here, and the doctors and the nurses and all the people coming in to help, they all had to get off the train with all their equipment and walk the rest of the way, and the hospitals were down here, and this is where they had to get to. So they had to pass by the bad zone, which I imagine a lot of them ended up staying there as well. So it was a huge, immense event in Halifax history. It brought us back in our development as a city, and so we remained. We're still a small city today, and we believe it's because of the Halifax explosion. It took us a while to get back on our feet. Boston was very instrumental in getting us back on our feet. Sent up trainloads of supplies and doctors and nurses, and it was like our sister city. So they really did help us, and we had a lot of money that was sent in from all over the world. From different places, from the U.S., from Australia, from Britain. The owners of the Mont Blanc sent money. And there was 3 inquiries afterwards, and the first 2 inquiries found that the Mont Blanc was at fault, where it was a munition ship and should have known better and really avoided it. And the last inquiry determined that they were both at fault. So really, no accountability there at the end, but everything was okay. We ended up starting to rebuild. This area is now known as the Hyderstone District, and they rebuilt it in a very very Victorian type of grid pattern of streets. A lot of townhouses up there, and with a green space in between the streets, 10 or 12 streets like that, and a nice little row of shops at the front. And we like to go visit. If you ever get to the Hydrostone, it's very, very nice. It's got that European feel to it. It's very, very quaint there. And it's very prestigious to be able to get your hands on one of these Hydrostone.
So this is the Canada at War and an East Coast port. And I know I didn't take any film of us really coming into port this morning, except for when I got that diamond art. But as we were coming in, you could very much see that this is still a very naval port. And even when we got off the ship, I could see it was a very naval port. I will try to film some of that later today. It's just, hopefully the fog goes away so we can see more of it.
The Halifax explosion was the biggest explosion before atomic bombs, and it happened the morning of December 6, 1917. And this ship was the Emo, and it was a Norwegian vessel, and this ship was a French munition ship which carried TNT, citric acid, things like that for the war, because this was during World War I. So the night before, the Emo parked in the Halifax harbor because it had to get refueled before the morning so that they could set off again. And this was the French munition ship, and there were submarine nests that were right around here that it got stuck in because during the nighttime they would go up in case any German U-boats would try to make their way into the harbor and blow up a ship like this. So it got stuck in between them for the night. So in the morning they both set off, and a good thing to note was that this ship had a red flag on it to let others know that this was a high explosive ship. But since they took it down the night before to make sure other ships weren't attracted to a ship like this because it was carrying so much explosives, they didn't put it back up because they were just going right here to the harbor, so they didn't think it was important to put the flag back up. So once ships started sailing again, there was a ship here called the Clara, and this ship asked Emo to move around them so that they wouldn't hit them, and they actually made their way into the left lane, which was not a good idea because the Mont Blanc was coming into the left lane, because when you're coming into the harbor, you're supposed to travel on the left, and when you're exiting, you're supposed to travel on the right. So in this case, the ships were making a direct path for each other. So once the ships got closer together, they realized one of them had to move. And since Emo got their special permission from the officer down at the harbor, they were like, we got special permission to be in this lane, and it would also be easier if you guys moved over because they were a smaller ship. But there was commotion and there wasn't that good communication back then, and they would use their horns and whistles to communicate, so they didn't really have good communication. And since the Emu didn't also know that they were a high explosive ship because they didn't have the red flag on them, they didn't know that this could eventually cause an explosion. So once the ships got closer to each other, the Emu tried to reverse its vessel, which would take a long time, because they were going pretty fast because they wanted to make their way out of the harbor quickly, and this ship tried to make their way around them, and since they reversed their vessel and their ship was big, it caused them to drift onto the right lane while the ship was going around them, and it caused the ships to collide. But that actually didn't cause the explosion, because when they collided, the citric acid was in the port of the ship, so it caused barrels from the citric acid to go up in clouds. And once the Emo finally reversed its vessel, since both ships were metal, it caused a spark, and the spark caused the Mont Blanc to blow up in flames. So the ship drifted off to Pier 6 because crew members abandoned the ship because they knew it was gonna blow up. So it was left unoccupied and burned there for about 20 minutes before it caused the explosion. And this orange area right here is where everything was completely destructed and demolished during the explosion. I do know around 2,000 people died that morning. and around 600 to 700 people were left without their eyesight because they were looking down at the harbor, not realizing it was like an explosive ship. So they were just looking down at what was going on, and since the shock wave, it caused a bunch of glass to blow out of their windows, and since they were staring in the windows, it caused the glass to blow up in their eyes and made them lose their vision.
So it's currently 12:08, so the decorative knot tying demonstration is over, but this is some of what they've been doing. So something that I haven't said yet is Halifax is the closest city that the Titanic sank to, so there's a whole exhibit here on stuff about the Titanic. This is a deck chair that was recovered from the Titanic. So depending on your status, it depends where you lived on the Titanic. So the Titanic crew lived at the bow of the ship over here. This was the least comfortable and most dangerous area in a collision. And then first class passengers were up here. And that was the most comfortable part of the ship. Movement wasn't felt as much. And then second class passengers were over here, but they were further towards the back, and they could also enter the boat deck. And then third class cabins had the very stern of the ship right above the propellers. So like up here, here's the victims. So first class, 57 were saved and 118 were lost of men, women, and children. And then second class, third class, and then the crew. Here is a deck chair from the Titanic. In 1912, they had to be rented, and they were only available to first and second class passengers, and they often tipped extra for a prime location. This is a post from one of the staircases, and it's quarter cut oak, the finest cut from the tree. And then I think this is like a replica, and you can just touch it. Really just feels like a normal piece of wood. People from Halifax found items that found wood from the Titanic, and they kept fragments of notable shipwrecks, and then anonymous pieces of wood from the Titanic were carved into keepsakes, such as like picture frames, cribbage boards, paperweights. They weren't sold as souvenirs, but kept by the families of the crewmen. So just like an example would be like a rolling pin.
So what they'll get you to do is print your name down the side, like Earl did here.
It was a cruise ship, and there was a lot of people. So there was a lady from off, she was on the cruise ship, and she came walking.
Besides your letters, find the corresponding Morse code character.
So after the whole break, one of the guys who I was there first, he said, "You've been listening. Would you like to go to Morse code?" So he said, "Do you know what Morse code is?" She said, "Oh yeah, I know what it is."
Is she a relative?
She said, "I'm the great grand niece of Samuel."
So, the Morse code is made up of different combinations of dots and dashes, dits and dahs.
Good morning,
So
or
a dit
good
is short,
afternoon, I'm sorry.
it's like this. And a dah is a little longer. So A, for instance, dit dah would sound like this. Try
You've
it.
been listening to me.
Okay, just try F. Dit dit dah dit.
Away if you send traffic or messages. Good
Oh,
dots and
that's dit dit dah dah.
Oh.
There, that's it.
Okay.
So you can try going down here, send
Take a
me,
pencil and a piece of paper.
and I'll
Write
copy
your
it
name,
as you're sending it.
top and bottom, or your nickname.
Send me your C again. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, now you look over
A-L-I-C-I.
here and find the corresponding character. Dot and a dash for A. And the opposite. It's a dash and a dot. Find your N then.
There
That's
you
your
go.
A. Now go find
Thank
N.
you so much.
You're welcome.
So that was the museum. I really enjoyed it so much. I thought the Titanic exhibit was really cool. The Morse code exhibit was cool. It was all so interesting, and especially the Halifax explosion. We had gone to a talk and heard some of it on the ship, but not as much as we heard today. What was your favorite part?
The Titanic display.
We are heading to the Citadel, and I've been told it's a very uphill walk. So we've made it to the top of the hill. The walk wasn't that bad. I've climbed mountains that were more hard to climb than that. But if you come to Halifax, once you go up the stairs, not these stairs, but the stairs where the red bricks are, it's a little more steep there, but it's not that bad either. So then we just have to walk up here. It's still a bit foggy out, but here's the panoramic view, what we can see.
Take charge of all government property within range of this post. All persons of respectable appearance may be admitted without a pass by recording their names in the visitor book. Pay compliments to all officers of the Army and Navy according to their rank.
Now there's some instructions for the relief sentry.
To your proper rear.
So a part of what you just saw was the changing of the guards at 1 o'clock, but we made it here just in time because they do tours every hour starting at the 05, so it's currently 103, 104, and so we've made it just in time for the 105 tour, which takes 45 minutes.
A moat, with water in it, but that was not the case for this fort. I'll explain why. So moats were more for medieval times when you had knights with metal armor. The idea is that a knight would fall into the moat and then he'd drown because his armor is so heavy. But by the 1800s, we're wearing wool uniforms like this, and it is thick, and it does get heavy when it's wet, but it's not enough, right? So if an enemy were to fall in here or into a moat with a wool uniform, he might be able to swim and wait for someone to get him out. But with a dry ditch, if someone were to fall in here, they'd most definitely, break their legs, become paralyzed, or something else, right? So it was much more dangerous to have a dry ditch, as we call it. That being said, we do have a drawbridge over here to your left, and historically that would have been the only entrance or exit to the fort. Today we have a back parking lot, but of course that would not have been there. So if they lifted up this drawbridge, all of a sudden there's no way in or out of the fort. The only way to attack would have been to come into this ditch, and then you have to get through 2 walls. Fort. A lot of people think these are ship masts. Not quite. A little bit different. So here we have the signal post building. We have 2 signal masts. The one behind me is the commercial mast, and the other one right over there, that is the military mast, or for military communication. So the signal post, the way it works is that there would be a couple of soldiers posted in here for 6 months, and they would rotate through every 6 months. But these guys would be in charge of doing all the signals and all the flags, right? So let's start by talking about this commercial mast. Let's take Apple, for example. We all know the Apple logo. This would kind of act as a billboard, right? So something that would happen is the soldiers would be looking out. This is the south end, we call it. They'd be looking out the south end of the harbor and seeing any ships that are coming into port. So let's say the Apple, like I mentioned, the Apple ship is coming in, right? They would spot the ship. They would put up the Apple flag. Right now we have the British flag up there, or the Union Jack. They'd put up that flag. They'd put up a pennant, which is a triangular shaped flag, and that would tell us what kind of ship it is. They'd put up the type of ship, And then they would say, was it spotted in the, so we have south, was it spotted in the east or the west? And they'd put up a disc that signifies that. So right now, you can see all the way over there on the east arm of the mast that there's a little disc like this that tells us it was sighted in the east. So they would put all that up. Just to recap, they would put up the flag. In our case, we're going to say the Apple flag. And then they would put up the type of ship, the triangular pennant, and they would put on, where it was sighted. These three things, very important, because that would tell all the people in the town what's coming in, right? Then you could look at this and you say, oh look, Apple's coming in. Time to go to the port and get my new iTypewriter, right? And yes, and it saves you from waiting like day after day, going down each day. Is it here yet? When is it coming? Just like my Amazon package. What we call the noon gun. That's this gun right here. You might notice we have two of them. This is the one we fire every day. The other one is our backup, just in case. So, as I said, we fire this gun every single day, and we do that except for on Christmas, because we don't want to be here on Christmas. But yeah, and we fire it exactly at 12 o'clock. Some of you might have been here. Even if you weren't here, you might have heard it downtown. Actually, I have family that lives in Dartmouth, that's across the water, and they tell me they can hear it every day at lunch. It's very loud. It's very effective. In the 1860s, this was still being used for only timekeeping. So they weren't really using this kind of gun in battle, because this is an older model from the early 1800s. By the 1860s, they would have had more advanced artillery. So they'd fire it every day at noon, but also they would fire it in the evening. So in the summers, it would be at 9 o'clock, and during the winters, it would be at 8 o'clock, so a little bit earlier. And this was beneficial for not only the fort, but for the rest of the city, right? So, a lot of people weren't able to afford pocket watches or things like that, so they relied on this noon gun to help them tell the time. So, again, for everyone in the town, they'd be able to hear it, and they would know what time it is. The soldiers here would know what time it is, and also, it would be a way for these ships to set their chronometers, which is like a precise sort of timepiece.
This is what the Citadel looks like from above, made of Lego. So it's in a star shape, and the lady on the tour was telling us that if someone would ever get in, that they would have nowhere to hide because they would be able to shoot from multiple angles. We have just left the Citadel, and we are now on our way to the public gardens. It takes about 10 minutes to get there from here, and I think it took about 15 minutes to get from the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic to the Citadel. are walking in the direction of the cruise port, and we are going to see what else we can find on shore. So the lady doing the Halifax lecture said to check out Cal's ice cream. I don't know if I'm gonna get anything, but it's right here. Oh, it smells really good. So I got the Cal Bar Gooey Mooey milk chocolate with English toffee flavor, liquid caramel bits, and chocolate crunch. And what kind did you get?
Apple crisp.
Ice cream and the chocolate bar were really good. I have not finished my chocolate bar yet, but my dad finished his ice cream and he said it was really good, and he liked it so much that when we get home, he's gonna Google a recipe to make homemade apple crisp ice cream because that's how much he liked it. There's still a bit of fog, but it's a lot less foggy now, so here's a really clear view. And then the ship is behind that brick building. To a comedian, and I'm just leaving the Newlywed Not So Newlywed game show. They were both good shows. Tomorrow I am really looking forward to the singer that's going to be performing. She has a 5-octave vocal range according to the information we were given, and I hope you enjoyed following along this vlog with Halifax, and I will see you tomorrow in Sydney.